And we are now at our discussion calendar, and our discussion item, our first one, is related to citizen initiated a petition relating to the Hughes Stadium property. And with that, we're going to have a consideration of a motion to go into executive session to discuss the Hughes Stadium property initiative process. And with that, is there a motion for this item, Kristen?
Yeah, actually, Mayor, I'm not going to be making the motion because I'll be recusing myself from this item because of some ongoing ethics concerns, and so I will not be participating. So if somebody can text me when you guys are done with that, that would be great. Thank you.
We'll do that. Thank you, Kristen. Looking for a motion, and I could help with the motion if Emily, please.
Yeah, I can give it a go.
Okay.
I move that the City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing with the City Attorney and appropriate management staff the following matters under City Charter, Article Roman numeral 2, Section 11, parentheses 2, City Code Section 2-31A, parentheses 2, and Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, parentheses B, parentheses 4, the following. Specific legal questions related to potential litigation regarding the Hughes Stadium property and the manner in which the particular policies, practices, and regulations of the city related to the acquisition, development, or regulation of the or local law, and B, specific legal questions related to potential litigation regarding the citizen initiative related to the Hughes Stadium property and the manner in which the particular policies, practices, or regulations of the city related to the citizen initiative may be affected by existing or proposed provisions of federal, state, or local law.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second, and thank you for that. And so we'll now have, if public would like to speak to the motion of going into executive session, please raise your hand if you're in the Zoom platform, or do a *9 if you're dialed in. And with that, I'll give you a moment to raise your hand so that we can recognize you and set the time. And I'll turn to our staff moderator.
Currently have 13 hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll allow a minute and a half for comment with regards to this. And again, this is on the motion to go into executive session. We will then come out of executive session and have the item that we will then discuss as it relates to the citizen-initiated petition relating to the Hughes Stadium property. So this is only to the only discussion related to going into executive session. And with that, we'll do a minute and a half and have our first speaker, please.
Cory is our first speaker.
Cory, please go ahead.
Cory, it looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
That's good. Go ahead.
Okay, well, to speak to the motion with executive session, obviously I won't be able to participate with that, nor any of the other citizens. I would advocate that perhaps this doesn't move to executive session. Briefly, in the Hughes Stadium issue, I would just point out that Fort Collins is a choice city for a reason. We have made, I shouldn't say we, but some people have made critical decisions early on in the development of the city in regards to land use and how the city operates. Kelly Olson is one of those people that I really have a lot of respect for. And I'll also point out that, you know, in medicine, I'm a family doc, and unfortunately, we have basically created an environment where external forces dictate how we take care of people. It's not because that's best for how the person is going to be cared for, but that's because of economic issues. So I would urge you, whether you go to executive session or not, to look at the larger picture. Fort Collins is growing, and we cannot basically turn it into another metropolitan area that doesn't have the capacity for people to get out, experience open space, especially with COVID and the importance of having an ability to move away from some of the stress and dysfunction. So I would advocate that we do everything we can as a city to keep this area open, not allow it to be developed into more residential areas, and that's going to be good for not only the citizens of today, but the citizens of the future. Thank you.
Okay, and let me just state that no decision will be made in an executive session, and the discussion will occur in the public when we come out of executive session. This is really with regards to items related to privileged information as it relates to land use and initiative process. So it's not related to any decision related to the Hughes Stadium property other than just being advised by legal counsel. Next, the speaker, please.
Caller 5, last 3 numbers, 571.
571, please go ahead.
Caller, I do show you as unmuted. Again, last 3 numbers, 571.
I had myself muted. This is Beth Benscheit, 80526. I would like to remind the City of Fort Collins, as part of their sales and use tax revenue, collects over $8 million a year for the natural areas. In the last 5 years, they've collected more than $41 million. So I would like to ask you to please use this money for what we truly care about. We only get one chance to save this piece of land forever. Once it's sold and developed, the people of Fort Collins will never get it back. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, this is speaks specifically on going into executive session. This item will be discussed after executive session, so you'll have a chance to speak to council publicly at that time. Next speaker, please.
2 citizens from District 2.
Okay. Please introduce yourselves separately, please.
Yes, this is Catherine Dubiel. I'm a resident of Fort Collins and elector in District 2. I will be the only speaker at this time from this Zoom link. So I was very much involved in the initiative process. And so, you know, hearing that this executive session is to discuss the initiative or the process involved concerns me, because what we don't hear, we have no way of commenting on. So you can say that it's privileged information and privileged discussion, but there were thousands of people in the city of Fort Collins who participated in this, and I don't feel that it's right for this discussion to be an executive session, particularly if it relates to the initiative and the initiative process. Maybe a clarification on that would help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Caller, last 3 numbers, 314.
314, please go ahead.
Yes, Council, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Jason Knievel. I'm a resident of Fort Collins. I'm a longtime resident of District 6. And I would first like to say thank you to Councilwoman Steffens for acknowledging the ongoing ethics concerns concerning the employment by her of CSU and the matter regarding Hughes Stadium. I'd like to ask that Mayor Troxell himself recuse himself from any matters that involve the Hughes Stadium, given the continuing ethics concerns with his employment as an employee of Tony Frank and CSU. And third of all, I'd like to echo the last caller that as a resident of District 6, this development is a huge matter for us. It directly impacts us, our neighborhoods, and everything from utility costs to the amount of traffic on our roads. And again, having this discussion in an executive session doesn't seem fair to the residents of Fort Collins. Apparently, this initiative had more than enough votes to make the ballot. I think the people of Fort Collins have spoken clearly that we would like to see this initiative on the ballot, and there's really no need to be hiding behind a closed-door session to discuss this. The citizens of Fort Collins have spoken clearly. Thank you.
Again, thank you. This is a motion just to go into executive session. No decisions will be made in executive session, and it's really just to be advised regarding land purchase matters and other things that allow for executive session. So next caller, please.
Mary Alice?
Mary Alice, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary Alice Grant, and I would like to echo concerns about going into executive session without hearing public comment. This is a citizens initiative, and there are a lot of concerns that we have that you may actually need to get legal counsel on, but you're not even listening to the citizens before you go into that session. So I wish that you would hear comments, then go into session, and then come back out for additional comments. The citizens always seem to be given the short end of the stick when it comes to having input in things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Next speaker, please.
Tamara?
Tamara, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Tamara Muir, in 80525. First of all, I would like to thank Kristen Stevens for her recusal, showing again integrity in the matter of apparent conflict of interest. I would ask Mayor Troxell to do the same, out of the same level of integrity. This whole issue with Hughes Stadium has been, has reeked actually of lack of transparency with multiple communications, core requests lacking significant information that the community knows has transpired. I feel that putting this into an executive session, again, as Mary Alice stated, you haven't heard what the matters are, and that may be very pertinent to any other conversations that you may have. So I do not support executive session.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Rory?
Rory, please go ahead.
Hi, Rory Heath, 80525. I definitely share the same concerns, and I think a lot of what I've said has been already covered. I mean, as it is, we're already kind of in the gray in terms of communications and where communication and negotiations broke down between the city manager and between CSU, and kind of a general and continually growing feeling of lack of transparency. And so, you know, anytime we go on into these, or rather anytime you guys go into these sessions, it does kind of have a tinge of lack of transparency. And I definitely understand the need for it, and I understand your stated purpose for it. However, I definitely would very, very strongly caution, I guess, about using it sparingly and unless absolutely needed. So that would be my strong comments on it. I mean, we're never able to figure out what goes on in these exec sessions, and we don't find out after the fact either. And as it is, core requests and other things like that have not shown up, things that have popped up later. So, you know, we can't help but look at this into the same light. So, you know, but put shortly, you know, an exec session and transparency is kind of a public trust. So I definitely caution based along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, please go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
I would strongly suggest against going into executive order or secession because we've been fighting you for over a year on this. You have known, you should have spoken about this at other times. We've made it this far. You're really going to have all of us come to this meeting and then tell us that you don't want us to speak and that you're going to go and have your own private meeting and then come back and not let us know anything you spoke about. Like, these are things you could have spoke about before and given us. I've worked a very long day and I've been on this for an hour and a half. And now you guys just don't want to hear anything we have to say. So it's really frustrating. Since I moved here, I've been organizing to preserve this space because it's a beautiful space and we deserve to have open spaces for wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And again, we will have a chance for people to speak with regards to this item as we come out of executive session. So this isn't your only chance to speak, nor will this be the time or the council will be having a discussion on this when the item is before us. So next speaker, please.
That's everyone, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we have a motion and a second before us. Council members like to comment on this item? And I'll start off by saying there was some request for my recusal, and there is no pending a conflict of interest issue as it relates to myself and CSU. There have been a number come forward, 3 exactly, and they've all been dealt with through the ethics committee of the city, as well as at the state level. And there is, in just simple terms, I have my role as a faculty member in the Department of Mechanical Engineering I don't get involved in any way with regards to the CSU system and land property issues and things like that. Its CSU system is a different entity than CSU Fort Collins. And then also there's the CSU Research Foundation, which also is a different entity. And so in my role as a faculty member in mechanical engineering, this doesn't have any bearing on my employment, nor does it have any bearing on my financial benefit or detriment. And with that, there is no reason for me to recuse on this item. I will be objective in my assessment, as I always have been, and related to all items related to Fort Collins and what's in the best interest of Fort Collins on this item. So I will not be recusing myself for this item. Ross?
Yeah, thanks. I'll be supporting the motion to go into executive session. I understand the citizens' fears that we will be making some decision and they won't hear what it is, but you know, I'm certainly myself, I'm committed to giving a full explanation of any decision that I make when we come out of executive session. In addition, we don't go into executive session to hear attorney legal advice regarding a hypothetical. At this point, this is the first chance we've had with an actual petition, validated petition in front of us. So I think it is appropriate for us to go get just the legal advice on make sure council understands what the landscape is with respect to our decision space on this petition. And then finally, we do have the opportunity, if a citizen question during our open discussion raises a legal question that we haven't contemplated, we certainly have the option to go into executive session to discuss that at that time. So as I said, I'll be supporting the motion, and although understand the concerns, I think that this is the best option for this council this time so that we can make the best decision when we come out.
Thank you, Ross. Other council members on this item? Are we ready to vote? Roll call, please.
Cunniff?
Yes.
Troxell?
Yes.
Gutowsky?
Yes.
Summers?
Yes.
Gorgol?
Yes.
Pignataro?
Yes.
The motion passes, and we will go into executive session. For 30 to 45 minutes as a guesstimate. And with that, we will be turning off our cameras and our microphones and leaving the Zoom room, and we'll reconvene for our executive session. We'll be back in a little bit.
You're on, Mayor?
Thank you. We are back from our executive session, and we're on the item relating to citizen-initiated petition relating to the Hughes Stadium property. The purpose of this item is pursuant to the requirements of the city charter when presented with an initiative petition certified as sufficient by the city clerk, is either one, to adopt the proposed ordinance without alteration within 30 days, or 2, to submit a proposed measure to the registered electors of the city. And with that, I'll turn to Darren for a staff presentation.
Mayor, I don't have a staff presentation. Dylan, do you have something scheduled, or Carrie?
We do. We have something short.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dylan.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here in a little bit. Does that look okay, Tyler?
It looks good.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Tallon Nightwal. I am the City Clerk, and I am joined tonight by Rita Knoll, the Deputy City Clerk, and by Carrie Daggett, our City Attorney. And we're happy to talk to you tonight about the citizen initiative related to the Hughes Stadium property. So we worked with citizens on this initiative starting at the end of August. They provided their petition with us, and we were able to approve it for circulation on September 4th. They needed to get the petition back to us. Their deadline was on November 3rd. They actually filed the information with us on November 2nd, so a day early. And then we checked signatures and were able to actually certify the petition on November 5th. So the requirement this time around for them was that they needed to collect signatures at least in the amount at least 10% of the total ballots cast in the last city election. So they needed 3,280 valid signatures. They actually turned in over 8,000 signatures as part of their effort. The clerk's office didn't check all 8,000, but we did check enough to know that they had 3,280 valid signatures. So the code requires me to present the certified petition to City Council at the next regular meeting, which is tonight. So I am here to present the petition to you. And Council really has two options related to this. So your first option is to adopt a proposed citizen-initiated ordinance without any alteration, and Council needs to do that within 30 days. Or your second option is to submit the proposed measure to the registered electors of the city at the next city municipal election. So we have a couple things before you tonight. Ordinance number 144, if Council chooses to go that direction, would allow Council to adopt the citizen-initiated ordinance without alteration tonight. And then alternatively, you could also consider the resolution. So the resolution adopts the ballot title and the submission clause of the measure. It submits the citizen-initiated ordinance to a vote of the registered electors, and we would then place that on the ballot for the upcoming April election. I would like to just mention that if you go the resolution route, you're not subject to the same 30-day time period. So the deadline for Council, if you decide to do the resolution, would be February 16th. So this was the initial proposed ballot language that was included in Council's agenda packets on Thursday. And we had an interested party, they had some concerns about the language as it was proposed. So they did actually file a protest with us yesterday. And code does allow any registered elector to file a protest related to the ballot title or the submission clause. So again, we did receive one protest yesterday. The deadline was yesterday, Monday, November 16th. And typically we would have added a public hearing to the agenda so that Council could have heard that protest. But we were able to work with this interested party to change the information as it was proposed, and it met their satisfaction. And so they actually withdrew their protest. So the revised proposed ballot language is here, and we did provide this to you earlier in a read before packet. Essentially what they wanted to do is change the order in the way that the information was presented. So they wanted the rezoning information to be presented first, and then that followed with the purchase information, and that's essentially the change that was made. So with that, we're back to the options that you have. Again, you can adopt the proposed citizen-initiated ordinance without alteration, or you can submit the proposed measure to the register electors of the city. And that's the end of the presentation. So I look forward to your conversation on this item.
Thank you very much, Tallon. And with that, we'll head into public comment, but I'm going to make a couple of comments just to put this issue into context. As we head into public participation and before our discussion tonight, I want to offer a few things for the context and reflect upon some of the challenges with how this process is played out. I'm now in my 14th year of having the privilege of serving on city council and serving this community. And during that time, as an elected official, we've faced many difficult decisions, and we've had a number of citizen-initiated petitions and votes as well during that time. Part of what makes Fort Collins a wonderful community it is that we can have differing perspectives about what will be in the best interest of our community. but we always approach those differences with a positive intent and knowing that we are all working for the collective good of our community. For some reason, this hasn't been the case on this particular issue. Unfortunately, it feels like we've been placed in an adversarial role, and not typically, that's not typically how we would like to operate as a council and as a community. The citizen initiative that has come before council really there's limits to what the city council can do. And essentially it goes around the city council directing the city manager to purchase the property. The city council has already provided that direction and to the staff, and the staff has pursued it using market-based logic and negotiating authority. The city manager has been highly transparent about that, and we are still open to those conversations. CSU declined the city's offer and has said that they plan to develop the property with the stated goal of generating a financial return and delivering a workforce housing for its employees. It's important to acknowledge that there are competing goals here. CSU is one of our most vital community partners, and we, despite the differing priorities for this property, we don't want to overshadow the decades of working together for the good of our community, good of the university, and good for all involved. We understand that supporters of this initiative do not want to lose this open space. We get that. No matter what happens next, we can assure you that the council is committed to transparency and to working with our partners to respond to the needs of residents for the good of the community. And so with that, we'd like to now open it up for public comment. And if you would like to comment on this item, which is the citizen initiated petition or the Hughes property, please, if you're in the Zoom platform, please raise your hand. If you are online, or if you're dialed in, please do a *9. We'll give you a few moments to raise your hand, and then so I can set the time accordingly to the number of speakers that we have. Tyler, do we have a count yet?
Currently have 24 hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. We'll set the time to 1.5 minutes. And with that, when you begin speaking, state your name and general address for the record. And if somebody has said something, you might want to emphasize a new point. And the city clerk will be keeping the time. And she'll let you know when you have 30 seconds and then when your time's up. So with that, we'll start with the first speaker, please.
So first speaker is phone caller, last 3 digits, 351.
351, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Not showing that they're unmuting themselves, Mayor. I can go to the next speaker and then come back to them.
Okay, next speaker.
Tamara.
Tamara, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Tamara, Mira from 80525. First, to Mr. Troxell, I respectfully will mention that the ethics concerns that have been addressed against you, I'll dismiss locally. Were not dismissed with the IDEC for lack of conflict, but rather due to lack of jurisdiction. There was mention that we would be looking at revising that locally, and just to note, that has not happened yet. 8,300 signatures during these times should speak volumes. These are members of Fort Collins community whom you all represent. The game keeps changing with CSU. The initial contract made no mention of affordable housing. Mr. Glass indicated only attainable housing at best. Mr. Atterbury gets into the game, and then Mr. Frank tells half-truths to get Board of Governor backup, and voila, now we have affordable housing. Allowing CSU to continue to manipulate their agendas by unethical and illegal tactics at the citizens' expense is very infuriating. This upcoming conceptual review on Thursday is a sham. To bring in the SPAR process is very confusing to me.
Tamara, you have 30 seconds left.
The Citizens Initiative is the only recourse we have to support the citizens of Fort Collins. The terms are outlined in this initiative are fair and show good faith on the part of the city to maintain the good neighbor relationship with CSU? Can they return the respect and consideration to our community? We need your support now. You are our elected officials and are responsible to act on behalf of your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Next speaker, please.
Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Farnsworth. I live off West Drake Road. Thanks for being here, guys. Imagine a conversation. Everyone knows you voted to pay taxes to save open space for the city. That's a big part of why we're here to visit you. Let's pick up some burritos and go for a picnic tomorrow. This could continue in two ways. Number one, we're really proud of the open spaces we bought. We could drive out for lunch. Our new park, it's only 20 miles away. Or two, we're really proud of the spaces we bought. Our new park, it's right here in town. It's great to have that huge park here so close. Now, imagine conversations like that taking place with people looking for places to go. Families, neighborhoods, neighbors, visiting friends, travelers, admissions officers, realtors, companies wanting to expand. A saved Hughes can touch us all hundreds of times a year.
30 seconds left.
A saved Hughes open space will always be a big part of many people's choices. Thousands of Fort Collins citizens are demanding Hughes be saved, purchased with open space taxes we've been paying for years. You need to act on that, and you need to realize a saved Hughes will pay us back in so many ways. It's critical you do whatever's necessary to buy the Hughes open space. There will never be another opportunity. This is exactly what the taxes are for.
Thank you, Tom. Next speaker, please.
Lacey?
Hello, this is Lacey Gechter. I'm at 80525. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
All right. I just wanted to speak in support of adopting the ordinance as is, if I understand that option correctly, adopting as is. And I'm really excited for open space at Hughes Stadium, whether you're at the Hughes Stadium location and whether you were in support of moving the stadium or not. Everyone in Fort Collins has put up with a lot of construction and traffic rerouting. And I love the idea of ending up with a beautiful open space that we can all enjoy at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. Next speaker.
Nick.
Hi, Nick. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Nick Frey. I'm at 80526. I want to say two things. The first is about excitement, and the second is about disappointment. First, I'm excited that there are only two options. Either the city council votes to adopt this right away, which frankly is the right thing, but I don't really care because it's going to be put to a ballot if that doesn't happen. And I'm sure that the voice of the people will be heard. Frankly, my disappointment is with Wade Troxell. Wade, I'm sure you have heard plenty from me, but I'm very proud that you're now hearing from many other people besides myself. I think it's unbelievable and unconscionable how corrupt you are and how fraudulent your beliefs and your stated claims are. And frankly, I think it's a pretty big vote of my allegations that the IEC did not actually drop for any reason other than lack of jurisdiction. So my disappointment is only that you would not lose a re-election based on your character and your actions. But otherwise, I'm very excited about things. Thanks, everyone.
Next speaker, please.
Michela?
Michela, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michela Dunbar. I'm a CSU student studying zoology. I'm also a member of the Northern Colorado Wildlife Center Board of Directors. I want to begin by expressing the extraordinary need that we have for a wildlife rehabilitation center in Northern Colorado and in Fort Collins specifically. I daily see injured and orphaned animals that have nowhere to go and Fort Collins residents that have nowhere to bring them. The community, both people and animals, desperately need an established rehabilitation center that is accessible and capable of handling Colorado's diverse number of species, and Northern Colorado Wildlife Center could be that place. We not only provide direct aid to wildlife, but we also provide valuable education and outreach opportunities to the community. As you all well know by now, Fort Collins residents have overwhelmingly expressed support for the non-development of the Hughes Stadium space, and there are so many reasons that I'm sure you will continue to hear during tonight's meeting to keep the space open. A wildlife rehabilitation center is one of those, and I urge you to consider not just my words, but the words of so many others that have repeatedly asked you to keep Hughes open. I urge you not to wait until April when the people will without a doubt repeat in the polls what they have already expressed to you directly. The public wants Hughes open, and I ask you to listen to the people you're meant to serve, listen to the needs of the community, and listen to Northern Colorado ecosystems. I ask you to adopt the Hughes ballot initiative outright. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Michela. Next speaker, please.
Martha?
Hi there, this is Martha Zook. I reside in 80521. I sent you guys all an email over the weekend, and I wanted to reiterate to you from that email. On one of the Saturdays that I volunteered to gather signatures for the petition at the farmers market, a gentleman by the name of Michael Maxwell, a descendant of the Maxwell family, stopped by my table to let me know that he and his family drove down from Red Feather Lake to sign our petition. Even though he knew his signature may not be counted towards the numbers, he wanted to make sure that the city knew his signature was on the petition. He and the rest of the Maxwell family strongly feel that CSU should do the right thing and give the land back to the community. CSU is trying to stifle the voice of City Council and the residents of Fort Collins so that we don't have a say in land use decisions within our own city limits. In fact, CSU has used the SPAR process in the past as a loophole to drive their own development agenda and circumvent the will of the residents of Fort Collins, and we all know that. This sets a dangerous precedent, and CSU must not be allowed to be bullied and be a bad neighbor yet again. Council, you have the power to shape the city to be the best sought after city in the state, but you also have the power to destroy it if you allow this mass bill to happen. As our representative decision makers, I ask that you show your support for citizens' engagement, as we have clearly gone before council repeatedly in multiple occasions to save Hughes Open Space. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Next speaker, please.
Phone caller, last three digits, 314.
314, please go ahead.
Yes, Council, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, my name is Jason Knievel. I'm a longtime resident of District 6. I would like to echo the statements of the earlier council. 8,300 signatures were collected in opposition of the Hughes development project. These were not signatures from random people outside Fort Collins. These were from residents, taxpayers, and voters in the communities that will be directly affected. We ask that this council listen to the will of the people that you were elected to serve. And Mr. Troxell, again, I exercise my complaint and my concern that you need to recuse yourself from this vote, given the this complaints and concerns regarding your employment and your close personal relationship with Chancellor Tony Frank. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Rebecca?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, thanks. Rebecca LaPole, 80526. I also echo what has been said by many of my fellow residents of Fort Collins, and we see the need for the Northern Colorado Wildlife Center every day, and it would be a great place for it to be over there where Hughes Stadium used to be. There's also the recent wildfires that had many people evacuated, and the firefighters who took up space there and used that as a place where they could reconvene after fighting fires. And if there were 700 homes there, where would they go? And where would those folks evacuate to? I heard somebody state that Fort Collins does not have the infrastructure in place to support many, many, many more residents. And there was just a huge development built on Drake and Overland just down the road from where this is. So we don't need more homes. We need more open space. We need it to stay open space. You're not going to be able to get it back
30 seconds.
Once it's developed. And as a CSU alum, I also agree with the fact that Mayor Wade Troxell should be recusing himself from this decision at all. I can't believe that it's still an issue after everything we have been fighting against you for. Please just recuse yourself, put this issue to rest, leave it as open space, and do what the citizens have asked you to do. 8,000 signatures during a pandemic is pretty impressive. Just listen.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next speaker.
Denny?
Denny, please go ahead.
Am I there now? Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I am wondering why I can't see all the council members on the screen. So
yes, please state your name and general address for the record, please.
I'm Barbara Denny, 80521. Mayor and City Council members, thank you for your service to our community. I know you have many critical decisions to make all the time, but I do just wonder as I start to speak, are you already fixed in your decision? Is it possible to move you? This parcel is so valued by all of us, and we the people value it for conservation. There are already a slew of planned developments here and many on the way all the time, so much, so fast. Please take a breath for us, we the people. This is a momentous decision. Please stand up to the moment, make a historic choice. The people have given you an opportunity, a legendary legacy decision is at stake. Please vote for the initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Next speaker, please.
Liz?
Liz, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Liz Daugherty, and I'm in 80526. My husband and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and we live by Spring Canyon Park on the west side of Fort Collins. We strongly support that Hughes be preserved and available to the public as open space. It's one of the reasons we love living here is having access to open space. Population growth and change is inevitable, but how we accommodate and plan for this can be well thought out. By developing every single plot of land in Fort Collins, which is now few and far between, we are drastically changing the foundation and what's important to the people, which is recreation and having access to open space in this beautiful place we call home. If Hughes were developed, our air quality would worsen, the traffic would increase, and we don't have the infrastructure to keep expanding on the west side of town. Our earth is dying a slow death, and we are building in every open space possible, interfering with wildlife.
30 seconds.
Hughes land is part of a migratory path, and wildlife are literally running out of space. 32,800 people voted in the last Fort Collins municipal election. More than 8,300 people signed our petition in 60 days. That's 25% of the number of those that voted in the last municipal election. The community overwhelmingly wants this piece of Fort Collins preserved. Our open spaces are being heavily used, and even more so during COVID.
Time's up.
It's important to have more open space, and I really thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Liz. Next speaker.
Mary Alice?
Mary Alice, please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Mary Grant. I live in 80521, and I am extraordinarily disappointed in the way that this public feedback was framed by Mr. Troxell, basically saying how contentious we've been. As a citizen who has been working on this project for 2 years now, I find it interesting that the city has not listened to us when feedback is given. We get the same 5 ideas of housing developments. No one is listening to our concerns about wildlife, climate, or quality of life. The community has been saying for months and months and months they want something different than a large housing development there. I personally sent the City Council a copy of the redacted agreement between CSU and Lennar over a year ago. Anyone who read that document would know that that agreement was worth more than $10 million. The city did not negotiate in good faith with CSU over this. They lowballed. There's ways of doing land swaps. There's ways of using taxes. I can't even believe that you can't be more creative and make this the city that it's supposed to be, a desirable place to live.
Time's up.
Thank you very much, Mary Alice. Next speaker, please.
Lisa?
Lisa, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lisa McDonald, and I reside in 80521, and I'm asking our council members to vote in the best interest of your constituents, to represent us in a way in which you promised when you were elected. I am one of the volunteers that obtained signatures for the petition, and there was not one person who was in favor of developing that land. And one of the signers asked me about the myth of affordable housing offered there. And then we discussed the development across the street from the Hughes space that has a large number of townhomes that start at $400,000 per unit for a townhome. This is not affordable housing. I've heard the remarks that Tony Frank has made in reference to the land, and it was evident he put his political spin on how developing this could bring benefits to Fort Collins. None of what he said made sense, and none of the bogus suggestions he made would be supported by the infrastructure there. I know each of you are aware this is about CSU trying to recoup money from a bad decision they made. And I'm asking you that you not hold your constituents, our community, accountable for their bad decision.
30 seconds.
We are tired. We're tired of the pandemic, an economic crisis, and of corruption. We need our open spaces more now than ever, and we have a duty to protect our wildlife and natural areas. What we really need tonight is for our city council to vote in support of the citizens of this community. Please vote in the manner in which your constituents have asked and in the spirit of what a politician with integrity would do. We really need you to do the right thing now. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lisa. Next speaker.
We have Beth via phone.
Beth, please go ahead.
Beth, 80526. I live 5 blocks east of Hughes Stadium. I volunteered to get signatures on the Keep Hughes Open Space petition. I sat out in front of my house in the month of October in rain, snow, smoke, and ash to collect signatures. Almost everybody walking by was either walking a dog or just walking for exercise. People would also stop when they were driving by. I got shout outs of thank you, lots of thumbs up, horn beeps, and friendly waves. People even rang my doorbell to sign the petition. People in Fort Collins especially support this because they've enjoyed the open space venue for decades. Most of the people who signed the petition were out walking their dogs. They said they usually use the Maxwell natural area, but had
30 seconds.
Received 15 inches of snow. We voted on a 1/4-cent tax for natural areas and have been collecting $8 million a year. Please spend it for something that we really care about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. Next speaker.
Ted.
Ted, please go ahead. Looks like you're muted, Ted.
Okay, sorry. Ted, thank you. Ted Walkup, Council District 5. 2 quick points in support of public open land at the Hughes site. First, the area around South Overland Trail and its junction with County Road 42 is the major access point to some of Fort Collins' most popular recreational areas, including Horsetooth Rock and Reservoir, the Maxwell and Pine Ridge natural areas, the Foothills Trail, Spring Canyon Park, and other biking and hiking trails. The increased car and construction traffic created by the proposed massive development would endanger bikers, runners, hikers, pedestrians, and other drivers, not to mention create increased air pollution. Second, the Hughes site is not a good location to expand housing, especially affordable housing. There are more suitable locations that do not force sprawl into the foothills, into an area with limited road access and considerable distance from services and employment. Development closer to the city center, such as the proposed Oak 140, is a wiser alternative for affordable and attainable housing for residents, including CSU employees. The bottom line is this: the affordable housing problem in Fort Collins will not. The affordable housing problem in Fort Collins will not come close to being solved by sacrificing these 164 acres to a developer like Lennar for a few tokens.
Next speaker, please.
Tallon?
Tallon, please go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Tallon Nightwal, 80524. I'm a veteran licensed wildlife rehabilitator of 20 years, and I'm also the president of a local 501c3 nonprofit called Northern Colorado Wildlife Center. This initiative has clearly shown that the citizens of Fort Collins want the Hughes Stadium site to be zoned for open space and wildlife rehabilitation. With only 5 acres being needed for an expanded wildlife rehabilitation center, this initiative presents a very reasonable request. With these 5 acres, we could bring bird and mammal rehabilitation back to our northern Colorado communities. With this facility will come jobs, volunteerism, and internship opportunities for all people, including youth, elderly, disabled, and students. The Hughes Stadium site has proven to be exceptional for this because it would allow us to serve our community while having public transportation access, being centrally located for people who find animals in need, and it will allow us to be in close proximity to our various community partners, such as Colorado State University, CSU's Vet Hospital, Front Range Community College, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and many of the Poudre School District schools. Our community needs an expanded wildlife rehabilitation center that can take in sick and injured birds and mammals community members find. Not only this, but those same community members can come to dozens of wildlife patients a year at this facility, the same wildlife they are seeing in their backyards every day. This expanded wildlife rehabilitation center would be an incredibly unique aspect of our community, and the Fort Collins residents have clearly stated through this initiative that this is what they want for the Hughes Stadium land. Thank you.
Thank you, Tallon. Next speaker, please.
2 citizens from District 2.
Yes, please state your name and general address.
Yes, my name is Catherine Dubiel, and I am a resident of Fort Collins, elector in District 2. I would like the file, which I thank you very much. The file that I asked the city clerk to display, and you see before you from the 2019 audited financial statements of the city of Fort Collins, the 10 years of sales tax revenue collected for the restricted purpose of acquiring open space. That's a 1/4-cent sales tax that was initiated by the citizens and voted overwhelmingly to be adopted. Similar to what you're facing tonight for your decision, this is a citizen initiative, and it will be overwhelmingly adopted once it gets to the ballot. But we hope that you'll decide that the weight of public opinion and your concern for the best interests of the city will allow you to spend some of that $74 million collected in the last 10 years and go into good faith negotiations to acquire that land after zoning it public open land. Thank you for your service, Council. I respect every one of you, but I will respect you more if you do the right thing for your constituents. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, this is Paul Patterson, 80525. I'm asking Council to adopt the ordinance. CSU has chosen to commingle a misapplication of the SPAR. Selling property to a private developer to build private homes is not public buildings or public structures. To add insult, the process allows CSU after just 60 days to ignore any advice that P&Z provides and dictate the land use. The assigning of land use is the citizens or the council's purview. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Sarah?
Sarah, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to say that I know that it may in some ways feel adversarial, and what I want to say is when you hear anger, what I hope that you hear is also how desperately important it feels to people. And what I want to say is there's something about this corridor that's the heart of this place. And we need it for our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our spirits. We need it to inspire us. We need it to awe us. We need it to soothe us. We need it to teach us. We need it to connect us with nature, each other, and our truest selves. We need it to remind us of what's important, precious, and worth protecting in this world. And so I hope that you won't mistake what's at stake for a simple money-making opportunity. I want to say that I very much favor approving it now, and I have deep concerns about this application of SPAR. And my concern in particular is that whether it's adopted now or whether it's adopted later, we'll still be dealing with the legality of the zoning. And so I'm hoping that you could perhaps answer after this, after the public comment part, what you see the legalities are of what will happen if, for example, we attend this meeting on Thursday. Is that essentially legitimizing this application of the SPAR from a legal standpoint? Because I think it's misapplied in this case because it's not for public business buildings or structures. And so I'd like to understand what that means now or in April with regard to the zoning.
Thank you, Sarah. Next speaker, please.
Lynn?
Lynn, please go ahead.
Oh, great. I got the right time this time. So my name is Lynn Stutheit. I'm in 80524. I'm just going to speak from the heart. I have a lot of notes, but what I noticed when I sat out getting signatures was this is not a party issue. This is not Republicans and Democrats voting one way or another. This is open space that during COVID especially, people from all backgrounds have come to enjoy, de-stress, fill up their soul tank from nature. And so I respectfully ask each one of you who represents the voices of the citizens that you are listening to our voice and that's a priority over the voices of CSU. I think the collaboration with CSU is great and that CSU is a primary important part of the city, but I think there's other collaborations we can do just like the water park and not cut them out totally. So I just hope that you will do the right thing and vote on the amendment and pass that tonight. Thanks for your work and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Lynn. Next speaker, please.
Rory?
Rory, please go ahead.
Hi, could you load my slide and then let me know, and then we can start the time then, please. Slide 3, please. Okay. Give me just a second, sorry. Okay, a little blurry there. I gotta love this. So the mayor, who's employed by CSU, starts the beginning of this public comment by saying that we should accept them as good partners, and that sometimes we kind of have to take it on the teeth from them. I can't disagree with that more. And it's absolutely amazing that the mayor would behave in this way. To be honest with you, your entire actions, Wade, is one of the largest stains on the mayorship and on Fort Collins politics that I've ever seen in my life. The slide you have up right there summarizes how much taxes you guys have collected for this very amazing opportunity. And you have it in front of you now, and you have the money in the coffers. I urge you to use that. Also, this is not a discussion on affordable housing. This is a question of whether or not to take open space away from your citizens. And now's the time to stand up for your citizens and their parks and recreations. The space is not simply a parking lot. It's a place to recreate, hiking, biking, cross-country skiing, sledding, disc golf. If you go
30
back
seconds.
To slide 2, please. And to close out, I want to talk to the people that are supporting this on council and the people that are there for it. I need you guys to fight like hell for this right now. We will always remember you guys for this, and I know that it is going to be a fight, especially in the discussion oncoming. But I need you to do it. We'll always remember you for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Jennifer, 80521, Mayor Troxell. CSU is seeking to create housing for its workforce. You fall into this category, which means you should recuse yourself as you fall into this category. $400,000 housing is not affordable to the rest of us. I am a teacher. I cannot afford a $400,000 house. We desperately need open space and wildlife rehab in Fort Collins. I echo that there would be jobs and volunteer opportunities, and especially with COVID, we need more jobs, we need more open space, and we need more volunteer opportunities for all of us to stay sane during this time. I stood outside in ridiculous winds, getting everything in my eyes. It was raining, ash, it was smoky, to help collect all of these signatures for you to realize that we want open space. We don't have the infrastructure like other people have said. I echo like literally everything everyone has said on this so far. Please adopt option 1 and provide your citizens with more open space, what we've been asking for over a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Addie?
Addie, please go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I'm at 80526. Growth to the left, growth to the right. Everywhere you look, there's no end in sight. You just want FOCO to be one big city. CSU should be called Corrupt and Selfish University. Tony Frank only cares about the bank. He only cares about the money. Listen to the community, honey. It never ceases to amaze me. If you could wake up and see, you're ruining this community by turning it into one giant city. Fort Collins is quickly losing all its charm. You want to do good or keep doing more harm. Hikers and bikers fill the local trails. If you develop on this land, consider that a fail. You're failing the community. How can you not see? The overwhelming majority of locals want the land to remain free. Free of houses, free of greed, free of ridiculous motives to develop to make a shiny penny. It's sad and wrong, and you know the right thing to do, yet you only care about money. How can you be such a fool? You claim to represent the community, and now's your chance to do the right thing. This is a democracy. Tony Frank, you're not the king. We need more space to recreate. We are begging you to do the right thing before it's too late. Don't make a mistake. We will continue to fight for what's right. Now the question is, which side are you on? Will you be the darkness or will you be the light? Thank you.
Thank you, Addie. Next speaker, please.
Colleen?
Yes, I'm Colleen. I live in 80526. And I was one of the many volunteers who circulated the initiative petition. The support in the community was overwhelming. People were eager to add their signatures and they were hopeful and wanted to express the desire that the ordinance be adopted. You can act tonight on behalf of myself and the citizens of Fort Collins who time after time have demonstrated their commitment to acquiring open space. Please vote yes on a motion to adopt the Hughes initiative on first reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mary?
Mary, please go ahead.
City Council, can you hear me?
Barely. If you could speak louder.
Okay. Hello, City Council. I mimic just the same sentiments as the previous speakers. This is a matter of fact, this afternoon, I'm working from home now because of the pandemic and I'm at 80526. So this land is in my backyard and I just did my mountain bike ride where in those hills where my kids do their mountain bike rides. I've met many people on this trail, made many friends, and it means a lot to them. I'm one of the volunteers who've collected signatures, and two things stood out: the passion in which people signed and wanted to tell their memories. The second one was the people who did come up to me and say, why should I sign this? They don't listen. City Council doesn't care. They're not listening to the citizens. I want you to prove them wrong. Accept this initiative. I want you to prove them wrong and show them that you have their backs. You're listening to them. And I understand CSU is in the process right now of developing other properties out east, right next to the church out east on Timberline. They have other properties to develop. Let's be real, it's not going to be
30
affordable
seconds.
housing because it's prime real estate backing up. That developer wants that because of the prime real estate. It's not going to be affordable housing. Once they get their way, they can put whatever they want on there. But I'm asking you to prove those people wrong that came up to me and said, City Council doesn't care. They don't listen to me. Prove them wrong. Show them that you have their back. Show them that they're wrong. Show them you're going to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next speaker,
Emily?
please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Emily Olivo from 80526, and I'm a board member of the Northern Colorado Wildlife Center. In the 2019 Fort Collins Community Survey, 60% of people identified the environment as one of their top 3 priorities for city leadership in the next 5 years. I think this is your moment to fulfill that demand from your constituents. Keeping this site as open space supports our climate action plan goals. It supports the health of our soil, water, and air. It preserves habitat connectivity. Turning it into housing will not only fail to meet these environmental needs, it will exacerbate the issues. Additional housing so close to natural areas will provide more opportunities for human-wildlife conflict, less flood and fire protection, fewer recreational opportunities, and more traffic congestion. Additionally, the designation of a portion of the land to a wildlife center is incredibly important. Without a full center in Northern Colorado, there are thousands of sick, orphaned, and injured animals that go untreated every year. With our population increasing, that number is going to go up. This week, you can choose to acquire the property right away, or you can let it go to the ballot in April when we're confident that the people will choose yes. Every month that goes by, there's more animals in need that go without care. Every month that goes by, more people are recreating at that space and building memories there. You can choose to wait for the ballot, or you can make this happen now and give us, your constituents, some brightness in a dark year. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you, Emily. Next speaker, please.
MMR?
Please go ahead. MMR, please go ahead.
Melissa, 80521.
Go ahead.
In the first proposal by Lennar and CSU, it was said there might be attainable housing. Now, all of a sudden, CSU is trying to say workforce housing is their priority. If it was so important, why not make it a priority from day one? Our priority from day one has been to preserve this beautiful piece of land. No longer can we be called paper tigers or simply just a vocal minority. If this citizens petition shows you anything, it's that Fort Collins voters value open space. They want Hughes to be conserved as such, and they want you to step up now and represent them. CSU is trying to use SPAR process to bypass our voices. Proposed developments that are viewed under SPAR must align with the current zoning of the property in question. Hughes is not zoned for any type of development or for anything else for that matter. By having their proposal reviewed under SPAR, CSU is violating one of the fundamental requirements of permitted uses for this property.
30 seconds.
Is a home municipality under which Fort Collins citizens are granted the right to decide how our local government or organize and how land use is decided and implemented. Where home rule municipal law generally increases control of local government for land use decisions, SPAR does quite the opposite. Fundamentally, it's a loophole that turns over full authority to an external entity that under normal circumstances would have to proceed under local regulations and development review process. In conclusion, we implore you to vote to adopt the citizens ordinance and zone Hughes as public land.
Thank you, Melissa. Next speaker, please.
Elena. Hi, this is Elena, 80521. I'll be brief. I just want to take a second to thank all of the volunteers that worked on this initiative. We worked our butts off, and no matter what happens tonight, we're going to fight CSU and their illegal use of SPAR, and we are going to win. So I want to thank you because we were awesome. You guys are awesome. And I urge council to adopt this evening. We're not done. We know CSU is trying to circumvent us with this illegal application of SPAR. We are watching how you vote tonight very closely. I promise you that. And I'd also like to speak to this issue of, City Manager Atterbury being transparent. not a lot of people know this, but the impetus for me starting this fight with my friends and neighbors was overhearing City Manager Atterbury
30 seconds.
One of the listening sessions and convince them that this would be a development when we were all there begging for open space, begging to be heard, and being told that the options were still open. So I don't think you should have anything to do with any of these negotiations. And I would urge you to take him off any negotiations with CSU and with Tony Frank. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jerry.
Jerry, go ahead, please.
Oh, this is Jerry Gavaldon, 80525. And I've been following this process with SPAR, CSU, and other entities. When I was on P&Z, I had to use SPAR when CSU, PSD, Larimer County, State of Colorado brought projects using SPAR. And SPAR is a state law, and it's a legislative under revised statute that we had to follow and adhere to. Though we fall into advisory capacity, and what the folks are trying to do with Hughes is trying to force a petition and force the hand of the university to do something where it could go with SPAR and follow its own process. And it's kind of a futile gesture to do this initiative because money's going to be spent, but CSU will have the ultimate say on what it can do with it by using the SPAR process because they took the other process off the table and went to SPAR. I am concerned about how we're going to go with this and the money we're spending.
30 seconds.
We may not have anything in our hands, but just a different development that we only give advice on. Thank you very much, Council, and make the best decision for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Next speaker, please.
Melody.
Melody, please, go ahead.
Yes, Melody Nicholas, 80526. Here's the thing. Everything that everybody's been saying, I think you've heard it before, but this is not just another cornfield, right? This is tantamount. If we allow this sale of CSU to have its, or Tony Frank, I should say, to have his way, sell it to Lennar, you know what Thornton looks like, you know? It's like giving a Stradivarius to a gorilla. Next thing you know, it'll be Picnic Rock. Oh, you know what? We can sell out to an amusement park. Or, you know, Bellevue really needs a good coffee shop. Let's let a Dutch Brothers come in and, you know, I mean, I know I'm using some hyperbole here, but this particular proposal that has been on the table completely lacks any type of creativity or foresight or initiative. And then another point that I'd like to make is that
30 seconds.
Tony Frank, in bypassing and using the SPAR and thus bypassing the procedure, is so disingenuous, and it just really hits a raw nerve with me. I'm just really tired of, you know, people, public servants and elected officials using their power to forward their own agendas. And the argument that the land belongs to CSU is, to me, moot because CSU is a land grant institute and that land was given to them by the people of Colorado.
Time's up.
Thank you very much, Melody. Next speaker.
That's everyone, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to thank everyone that came out and spoke to council. And with that, we bring it to council and discussion. Who would like to start? Ross?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a couple of questions of city staff and the city attorney. The first question in the agenda item summary, the presentation refers to ordinance number 145, but I think that's actually ordinance number 144. Is that correct?
It is, Ross. Yeah, I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you. And then for the city attorney, reading this, it looks like it's directing two things. One's legislative in terms of setting the zoning, and the other one's kind of, I don't know, administrative, telling us to buy it. My understanding is that administrative matters are not ones that generally go to ballot initiatives. Can you give some color there?
Yeah, Councilmember Cunniff, thank you for asking about that. You are correct that matters such as a municipality's sale or acquisition or use of a piece of real property has been found to be an administrative type matter rather than a legislative matter in Colorado law. And there are multiple decisions where Colorado courts, including the Colorado Supreme Court, has determined that the citizen initiative power does not extend to administrative matters, and it only, in fact, covers legislative matters, unless, in the case of a city charter such as ours, there were express language making administrative matters subject to the initiative. We don't have language in our charter that specifically brings administrative matters in under the citizen initiative power. And so there is an issue here with respect to the portions of this initiative that deal with the matter of acquiring the property, as opposed to the zoning aspect of the initiative, which would be, under the cases interpreting this, considered a legislative matter and therefore appropriate for a citizen initiative.
Right. Now, one way, though, to sidestep that would be if council were to adopt this. I think that council has the authority to take administrative action. So council could adopt it.
That's correct.
That issue altogether. Yeah.
That's correct.
And then the other point, this is more of a point than a question to staff. Several people referred to actually there could be a question to staff in here, to the natural areas tax. I guess the question to management staff would be, when we were talking about the previous offer, we weren't just using natural areas tax money. Basically, as the initiative is written here, it contemplates several sources, and if we were to move forward purchasing this property, we would likely use several sources and not just entirely natural areas. Is that kind of where we went and where we'd probably go?
That's correct, Councilmember Cunniff.
Thank you. Yeah, because I don't support buying the entire parcel, whatever the price is, with natural areas dollars. The whole parcel is not natural, not habitat. The natural areas tax, in my opinion, has very specific guidelines in its ballot language that talk about habitat, talk about restoration, and talk about the purpose of it. That part of the Hughes parcel could be viewed as compatible with that. Part of it, though, stormwater detention and buried stadium foundation are not as likely to be ones that we would consider compatible with the natural areas. So, but we could use general fund. We could use other interfund loans as a bridge. We could use land swaps. We could use a variety of different mechanisms to get to the rest of it if the council did choose to move forward with a purchase.
And yes, I would agree. And those were options that we did consider.
Right. Okay. I don't have any other questions. When the time comes, I'm ready to make a motion to see if it passes, but I'll let other council members get their questions answered first.
I have a couple of questions. Well, first of all, it suggests that there's a price, or maybe a starting price, at $10 million. But if we don't have a willing seller, what's the price? And I guess that's, rhetorical. And so, what would be the limit on any price? And I don't know. I'm just wondering out loud. Another question is I assume that that's the property as is. And so maybe somebody could speak to the condition of the property as it relates to a standard for natural areas.
Mayor, I'd be happy to speak to that very quickly. If you want more details, John Stokes is on the call. We expect to restore this property would take several $1 million more to restore it beyond the property acquisition proposal that we've presented to council.
Okay, and I presume that means removing the road base that has been the parking lot and other sorts of, I don't know about the stadium foundation or things like that, but I don't know if that changed the stormwater detention facility but just wondering, you know, has that been looked into with any detail?
It has at a conceptual level, but soil restoration would be a very significant cost item for restoration. Again, Mayor, if you'd like, John Stokes is on the call and he's able to answer questions more specifically if you'd like. Right,
and I guess my point is, one, we don't know the sale price, and if without a willing seller, you could argue it's infinity, if not near infinity, and then also with reclamation of what has been a stadium parking lot and you know, to get it to a natural area, you know, there's a lot more cost than I think that was even represented during the petition to suggest it was a natural area. Other questions?
Mayor, if I may say, I know there were several residents that community members that were suggesting that we lowballed it or that, and I can't remember all the various words that were used. You know, acquiring property is something that the city does have significant expertise in. Are we experts in all areas of property acquisition? We aren't, and we go out to the private sector for help to better understand what market values are. I can tell you, contrary to what some people who spoke tonight feel about the property, that the value that we presented to the council and to Dr. Frank, we feel that it was justifiable given the conditions of the property. We have always had an expectation from City Council that we make market value offers, and that's exactly what we did. And I think that the methodology and the numbers and the time that we had to present, I stand by our numbers. Could more money have ended up in a purchase? Not the amount of money that we thought we could have added to the market value. If the council wanted us to go way beyond market value, in our opinion, I mean millions of dollars beyond, then maybe there would have been a property acquisition that could have occurred. But that's not how we've acquired property, nor have we recommended council for the 15 years that I've been in this role.
Right. And I'm also trying to understand, and maybe we don't have the right people to explain this, but how a wildlife center, you know, meets the objective of open space. And, you know, there might be some compatibility there, but, you know, I think it was a convenience for petition signature raising, but maybe I don't know what that means in terms of long-term use for open space. So. Julie and then Ross. And
yeah,
then
thank you. This kind of spins off a question, and I think we talked about this clarification when we were talking about the Harmony corridor as well, but can we get it again with open space versus natural areas and the different uses of open space, what that can mean? Is there anyone on who could speak to that?
There is Councilmember Pignataro. John Stokes. John, would you mind turning on your video and joining us and maybe giving a quick version of what open space, what it means generally?
No, I can take a stab at that, and let me know if I'm headed in the right direction, Councilmember Pignataro. You know, we have two sources of funding for the natural areas program here at the City of Fort Collins. One is a City of Fort Collins sales tax, and the other is a county sales tax, and we get a portion of that revenue shared back with us. The revenues can be spent in accordance with the initiatives that were passed by the voters, and then also in accordance with our master plan that was adopted in 2014. We use the term natural areas. Other programs tend to use the word open space. We don't use that term, and the reason we've chosen to use natural areas is to emphasize the fact that our mission is oriented to conservation and biological diversity and so forth. And so we typically don't use that term open space when we're talking about the work that we do out of our natural areas department. So I hope that helps a little bit. I don't know if I was addressing your question correctly or not.
A little bit. I think more, could you speak to some of the uses of open space that we've seen around the community? Like that it's not necessarily natural areas, but it can be, like what it can be and what it can't be. Can it be buildings? Sure. Can it be, you know, I think there, like HP uses it tennis courts, correct?
Yeah. Sure. Well, the natural, we have different categories of land that we manage as an organization. So we have stormwater facilities, we have park properties, we have natural area properties. The natural area properties, obviously, as I just said, are managed primarily for conservation and their aesthetic and biological qualities. They have access. We have 50 natural areas. I think 48 of them are open to the public. 2 of them we're working on. Parks includes what I would characterize as open space. For example, at Spring Canyon, you have big open fields and you can run around and play Frisbee and do what you like on those properties, which is a little different than the way we manage natural areas. We don't let people run around anywhere that they want to go. We try to manage people on a trail system. So we're steering people away from sensitive habitat and trying to reduce the impact on the property. And then we have stormwater facilities. Some of those are actually open to the public, and you're able to go there and do various activities. For example, at the CSU site or the Hughes Stadium site, we actually have a Frisbee golf course and a stormwater facility. So there's a multitude of different kinds of properties, and we do manage them for different purposes and for different values.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. And that's a good segue into another thing. I did want to thank everyone who came and spoke tonight, especially everyone that emailed and called in the week prior. But I do think some clarification needs to be made, not necessarily with our comments tonight, but that area where the sledding hill and Frisbee golf course are, as I understand it, the city has a permanent easement there. Is that correct, Darren?
That's correct. For stormwater.
Okay, so for stormwater, right. So nothing could be built there ever or until we have a new stormwater facility. Is that correct?
Well, let me, I see Carrie ready to say something. I think if that facility were relocated, replaced somewhere, Carrie, you know what, I'm going to just ask you, Carrie, to respond. I mean, there's a permanent need for that facility. If that facility were to be relocated somewhere else in the community, obviously within that basin, then Carrie, maybe could you speak to the future of that permanent easement if the need goes away?
So the city acquired a stormwater easement that was intended to address stormwater flows in perpetuity. There are some provisions in the stormwater easement that would allow for the location of the detention to be relocated or for that to be changed. However, the city's right to have its stormwater facility on the property is permanent. So it's not necessarily the case that it forever would always be in the exact same location.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then my last question, and I will turn this into a question. It kind of goes a little bit off of what the mayor was saying, but are there any third-party entities that can determine what fair market value is?
And I will let Carrie and John speak to that, but I will tell you there are appraisers who could look at the land and give us estimated values. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's, you know, the question is does Colorado State accept fair market value, and are they willing to sell the property?
And do those estimates of value, sorry, one last thing to add on to that, do those estimates of value change depending on what the zoning is?
Yes. So okay. For example, if land was zoned as open space, it would have less value than if it were zoned as a higher intensity use, say a commercial use or a employment use or something like that. So yes, the underlying zoning does have a significant impact on the value of the land. But I just want to make sure that I answered your first question completely. There are often times where we will hire an appraiser or select, I think, John, one or two appraisers to look at and then compare the seller's appraisal and our appraisal, and that helps get to an acceptable price.
Yeah, that's true. And if you don't mind, I just wanted to jump in and say that, Darren mentioned earlier that we do have a lot of experience in acquiring land, not only for the Natural Areas Department, but obviously for other departments as well. So we have a great real estate services group, and we also have staff in Natural Areas who have been conducting land transactions in some cases for decades. So we believe that we have a pretty good handle on the real estate market in Fort Collins, and sometimes we get properties appraised and sometimes we don't. We have a lot of confidence in our ability to figure out what the value of a property is, and frankly, sometimes we don't think it's worth actually spending money on an appraisal, but it just varies from each deal to deal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ross and then Ken.
Yeah, this is just a quick follow-up, Mayor, to your question about wildlife rescue or wildlife facilities. My read, I don't know if we have, Darren, any planning staff online here, but is that the POL district designation has as a permitted use in Section 3A, institutional, civic, and public uses, and number 2 is wildlife rescue and education centers, subject to review by planning and zoning. Is that my understanding correct there?
That sounds correct. I know that Cameron Gloss is on the line, or Carrie, I'm not sure if you have thoughts about that. I don't have the kind of familiarity that Cameron may have regarding our zoning code. Or Karen Champagne. I see Karen. I thought Cameron was with us.
This looks like relatively plain language, so I'd be surprised if anything else.
It sounds like that's directly out of our code, and that sounds very reasonable. There's my interpretation for this evening.
Okay, that was it, Mayor.
Thank you. Ken?
Hey, really just, Ross provided the information I was looking for, so thanks, Ross, for saving my time, answering my question before I ask it. There was another, I guess just, more of a comment. I mean, if we're able to, if this were to pass, if the citizens were to pass this initiative that we were able to purchase the property, my understanding is that everybody likes it the way it is, and so that nothing else would necessarily need to happen to it, essentially in the short term until, if and when we determined there were funds and a plan to do something other than what's there, because my understanding from the public is they like it just the way it is. So that would help in terms of either any future plans. If we did own the property, we'd be able just to pretty much leave it like it is, and it seems like that would satisfy people. But I know we are, I don't want to get too far off because we have a kind of an item on the table, which is just to move this forward for a vote in I guess the options that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council members? One point of clarification. A couple of speakers showed tables with the quarter-cent sales tax over the last 10 years. And one speaker implied that there was like $74 million available for open lands, natural areas acquisition. We've been acquiring natural areas over the last 10 years. So I don't believe we have an account balance of $74 million.
No, that's correct, Mayor. And just to clarify, our revenues are around $8 million a year. And as I recall, we budget about roughly $5 million a year for operations and maintenance of the natural area system. And so typically we have $3.5 million left over to work with in terms of land conservation.
Okay. And then also related to that, I remember when we were earlier in our conversation related to this, there was a discussion whether or not this was a priority for natural area or open space acquisition. And I remember at that time it wasn't. So, you know, so this would actually display some other priorities that have been, you know, through our land stewardship boards and others that have really, that are community directed, that have, you know, really put some priorities for some quality natural areas into line. So I'm just trying to understand where this fits in the priorities.
Right. Well, when we originally were having conversations about this with council, staff did not recommend this as a potential acquisition for a variety of reasons, including the fact that we own a lot of natural area space on the west side of town, and we also have a big community park close by, Spring Canyon Community Park. So we felt as though this area was well served, and that we had other parts of town that were not as well served, and so we didn't think this was probably an acquisition that made sense. You know, that was our recommendation at that time.
Okay. I understand. Other council members? Ross, go ahead.
I have a motion if we're ready, but I don't want to short circuit the conversation.
Well, I think get something on the table.
Okay. Yeah, I'll float this and see if it passes. If not, then we can go a different direction. But I move that the council, this is option one, that the council adopt ordinance number 144/2020 of the council of the city of Fort Collins, adopting a citizen-initiated ordinance regarding the rezoning and acquisition of the Hughes Stadium annexation property.
Second.
There's a motion in the second. Any conversation?
I can speak to it.
Okay, Ross?
Yeah, so, you know, looking at this, as I mentioned at the beginning of my questions, you know, there is this question about administrative versus regulatory or legislative action of the council, and the council can take any kind of administrative or legislative action that it wants, as I propose here. But if we were to go to a ballot initiative, there would be some complexities, I suspect, that we would have to navigate. This is the most straightforward way of doing it. I agree with you, Mayor, that we will not be spending, I would not support spending all of this money, even if CSU agreed to it, out of natural areas. Fortunately, the citizens foresaw that and proposed that it can be a mix of including but not limited to several different funds. So I think that gives the council or future council some flexibility. I do want to thank the citizens for being persistent here, by the way, before we take a vote. I think that they've really made their case clearly what they want, what they need. They've done extraordinary effort to getting these signatures, regardless of which way we go on this. The citizens have stepped to the plate and certainly have engaged in direct democracy here. So I just wanted to say thank you to them for that. And so, but I'll support this motion. We'll see where it goes and where the conversation takes us.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, certainly the citizens have been, very active in this, and certainly their, efforts, are to be commended. But as the resolution states, they want to provide an opportunity for all the citizens of Fort Collins to express a view on this issue. And I think it's time to see this issue put out to the entire constituency. 8,000 signatures, let's assume they're all registered voters. I think that represents, maybe, I hate to, I'm not sure how many registered voters we have in Fort Collins, but it's significantly more than 8,000. And I think it would be prudent to give all the voters a this is a Fort Collins endeavor. It should have a Fort Collins voice. And, even if there was an issue in terms of the administrative issue, I certainly would be in favor that if the voters of Fort Collins desire to have the Hughes Stadium property as public open space and zoned for public open space, that we follow that up with a concerted effort to, purchase the property. And I'd certainly be willing to, commit to that. And so, so this is a significant issue. The petition that the voters put out is all the voters of the citizens put out was for all the voters of Fort Collins to have an opportunity to chime in. That's what when people signed the resolution, that's what they were expecting. And that's what I would support.
Thank you, Ken. Other council members? Emily?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for all the questions and discussion. I'm not opposed to this being an open space. I think it would be a great open space. And so I think it's great that, the residents have been really passionate and taking a lot of initiative in this. I think this is a great part of the democratic process, and that's where I'm getting hung up, because I think we could try and get it as open space. I think that gets us towards our climate action goals, but I have concerns about finishing out that democratic process and taking it to the ballot, because, I think people signed it thinking that they wanted to put it on the ballot. And I think that's different than supporting it. And I think that they could be interested in it. But when I find something to put it on the ballot, it's not a commitment. It's saying we should take it to the voters. And I think that's what people were doing when they say it. And so I think that's where I'm getting hung up, is like, I think we kind of need to finish the democratic process and take it to the ballot. I think that either way we can move, once I think Fort Collins could be supportive of it, and then we would know on it. But I think this group has been really active and really great showing up, but I think we need to hear from everyone, and so that's why I think we need to ballot and really through with the democratic process.
Thank you, Emily. Other council members? Susan, go ahead, please.
I'll support the motion. For many months now, the residents of Fort Collins from all corners of the city have expressed their desire to conserve this very special piece of land. 8,000 signatures have been collected, well above what was required. And it was a long and arduous and daunting task based on the hundreds and hundreds of emails that I have read. I believe that this initiative would pass if placed on the ballot. Hundreds have already spoken in support of preserving the Hughes property as a community legacy. So I don't believe that we need to postpone this zoning question any longer, and I will support the motion.
Thank you. I'll be supporting option 2. So that means the motion that's on the table, I think it should go to the voters at the April election. I think that would provide for a firm indication of the support from the community. And I think there's a lot more information that really needs to get to the community regarding this property. And I think the ballot process would do that, and I think I would support the vote of the people in this case. Any other comments, final comments? We ready to vote? Okay, we're voting on the motion, which is option 1, which is to accept which is ordinance 144. Any other final comments on this item? Roll call, please.
Troxell,
No?
Gutowsky,
Yes.
Summers,
No.
Gorgol, Gorgol,
No.
Pignataro,
Yes.
Cunniff,
Yes.
So 6 and 3 and 3, so that's a tie. So by our rules, correct me if I'm wrong, then that motion fails. And so we're back to not a motion on table. Ross?
Yeah, so I'd like to then make a motion for option 2. This option 2 is not one I believe anybody has seen. So Ms. Daggett, are you prepared to project this? So, Mayor, I move adoption of Resolution 2020-105 of the Council of the City of Fort Collins, provisionally and conditionally submitting a citizen initiative ordinance relating to the Hughes Stadium property to a vote of the registered electors of the city at the regular municipal election on April 6, 2021. And the body of the resolution is, as the city attorney is showing, the council members have seen this, but we'll probably need to walk through it if we get a second.
Right, so we have a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
A second, Emily? Okay, thank you. So there's motion and a second. So Carrie, would you, do we need to read it into the record at this point? Carrie? Oh, you're the famous words.
Sorry. I'm sure I clicked on it. It just didn't unmute me. Council does have this language in front of council, but it might be helpful to read it so that it's clear in the record what it is that council's adopting, and so those who have not had the benefit of having it in front of them have the information.
I could read it if, Mayor, if you
would you
like. Yes. So the resolution reads in its entirety, whereas under Article 10, Section 1, Parent A of the City Charter, the registered electors of the city have the power to propose a measure to the City Council. And if the City Council fails to adopt a measure so proposed, then to adopt or reject such ordinance or resolution at the polls. And whereas an initiative petition relating to the purchase by the city, zoning, and use of the property known as the Hughes Stadium property has been submitted to the city, and the city clerk has certified said petition as sufficient for submission of the initiated ordinance to a vote of the people at the next regular city election on April 6, 2021. And whereas the city clerk has presented said petition to the city council as provided in Article 10, Section 5, Parent F, Parent 4 of the city charter. And whereas under Article 10, Section 1, Parent E of the city charter, upon presentation of an initiative petition certified as to sufficiency by the city clerk, the city council must either adopt the citizen initiative ordinance without alteration within 30 days, or submit said citizen initiated ordinance in the form petitioned for to the registered electors of the city. And whereas under Article 10, Section 6 of the city charter, upon ordering an election on any initiative or referendum measure, the council shall, after public hearing, adopt by resolution a ballot title and submission clause for the measure. And whereas the ballot title for the measure must identify the measure as either a city initiated or citizen initiated measure. And whereas the submission clause must be brief, must not conflict with those selected for any petition previously filed for the same election, and must unambiguously state the principle of the provision sought to be added. And whereas under Colorado law, only legislative matters and not administrative matters are subject to the citizen initiative power granted to the citizens of the state and municipalities in Article 5, Section 1, Parent 2, and Section 1, Parent 9 of the Colorado Constitution, respectively. Whereas this citizen initiative power regarding legislative matters and not administrative matters is similarly granted to Fort Collins citizens in City Charter Article 10, Section 1, Parent A, and whereas some aspects of the initiative petition here appear to address administrative matters and therefore may not be appropriate matters for inclusion in a city ballot measure as a citizen initiative, and whereas a determination of what matters in the citizen initiative are legislative and Whereas a determination of what matters in the citizen initiative are legislative and what are administrative is needed in order to ensure that the city council and city are acting in accordance with the Colorado Constitution and the city charter in the use of a citizen initiative. And whereas Colorado courts have made it clear that an initiative may be subjected to pre-election judicial review to determine whether matters addressed in the initiative are administrative or not. And whereas, although the City Council has acted in this resolution to place the entire citizen initiative on the ballot, it is doing so only provisionally and conditionally, so that the content of the ballot question may be subject to later modification as needed based on a judicial determination regarding the proper scope of this citizen initiated measure. And whereas it is the City Council's intention in adopting this resolution that this matter be revisited by the Council on or before February 16th, 2021, for an update on the judicial proceedings directed in this resolution and the City Council's final determination of what portions of this citizen initiative are to be submitted to the city's electorate and final wording of the ballot title and submission clause for this measure. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Fort Collins as follows, that Section 1, that the City Council hereby adopts as findings and determines the recital stated above. Section 2, that there is hereby provisionally and conditionally submitted to the registered electors of the city at the next regular city election to be held on Tuesday, April 6, 2021, the following proposed citizen-initiated ordinance conditioned upon and subject to subsequent judicial review and City Council modification as set forth in Sections 4, 5, and 6 below. And I'm going to skip the body of the citizen ordinance and down to Section 3, that the foregoing ballot title and submission clause for the citizen-initiated ordinance is hereby provisionally and conditionally submitted to the registered electors of the city at said regular city election, conditioned upon and subject to subsequent judicial review and City Council modification as set forth in Sections 4, 5, and 6 below, in substantially the following form. Proposed citizen-initiated ordinance, and I believe, Ms. Daggett, this is the same, right? So I don't have to read that.
This is actually the language that was published yesterday, so it does contain the modification that the petition representatives requested yesterday.
Okay, and I should have said in the part that I skipped, that is verbatim the citizens ordinance. So, and then Section 4, the City Council directs the City Attorney to file a declaratory judgment action in Larimer County District Court and such other legal claims and causes of action as she determines to be appropriate, in order to seek a judicial determination of what aspects of the above described citizen initiative and submission clause are properly placed on the ballot of the regular city election on April 6, 2021. Section 5, in the event that there is a judicial determination that portions of the citizen initiative and submission clause are not properly placed on the ballot of the regular city election on April 6, 2021, it is the Council's intent that the ordinance and submission clause as submitted to the ballot above be modified or deemed modified to reflect the order of the deciding court, whether before or after the April 6, 2021 election. And Section 6, that the city manager and the city attorney are directed to report back to the City Council on this matter on or before February 16, 2021, to provide the Council with the status of the declaratory action filed with the District Court, and for the City Council to make a final determination on the wording of the ordinance presented in Section 1 above and the wording of the submission clause presented in Section 3 above, that will be submitted to the city's electorate at the city's regular election on April 6, 2021.
Thank you, Ross.
And so can I just speak to a little bit?
Yeah, please, Ross.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, what we're doing in this action is referring the entire thing to the ballot, but then we will ask a judge to help us sort through the charter issue and the constitutional issue. And regardless of, if the judge says that parts of this are administrative, I think that this council can then have the debate about what it wants to take up under its administrative authority should the ballot measure pass. I think that this doesn't necessarily say that the council won't do any of those things. It's just to say that the ballot box is not the right place to decide that question, and rather it should be subject to council action. I think I would suggest that on or before that February 16th date, that council could also pass and should also pass a resolution directing staff in the future, once the outcome of the election is known, to bring whatever administrative actions we feel are necessary to satisfy the intent of the petitioners and the voters on this.
Yep, thank you. Other comments?
Councilmember Cunniff, I do have a request. I noticed a couple of things as you were reading that I think would be corrections that I'd like to point out.
Okay.
One of them is in Section 6, there's a reference to the wording of the ordinance presented in Section 1 above, and I believe
can you point to that or take this off the screen? Okay.
Is that okay?
That's preferred, at least. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So in Section 6, there's a reference to the ordinance as presented in Section 1. And I believe that because of the changes that are made above, should be the ordinance as presented in section 2. And then I would also note there was one recital that was missing an "and" at the end.
I noticed that too, but I chose not to read it.
Yes, and if that would be something that'd be helpful to go ahead and also correct if you don't mind.
I would consider those friendly to my motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As long as, was it Susan or Julie who seconded?
It was Emily.
It was Emily who seconded. That's right. Thank you, Emily. Is that friendly?
Yes, that's fine.
Grammatical changes? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion before us? I appreciate Ross and Emily putting this motion forward, and I think taking it to the ballot box is a good thing, and I think that will have I think that'll validate all the discussion that will that'll lead up to that. So I appreciate that. Any other?
Yeah.
Any other councilman? Yep, Ross.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this, Mayor, since I put a lot of effort into reading it. I think I have to.
That's right.
I think the citizens do deserve to vote on it. If council feels in its best judgment that it's not best just to adopt it, so which we decided, and therefore, voting on it. I do think that the administrative versus the legislative does need to be settled. But as I said, I think that there's ways that we can honor the intent of the voters as we do that, so that we're not making it clear that we're not trying to get out of anything that the voters are asking us to do, but rather that we just want to make sure that we're abiding by our state constitution and city charter as we move forward in this direction. So,
thanks, Ross. Julie? Oh, mute. Yep, you're mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I will be supporting this, although I would have preferred to adopt it tonight. We need to adopt it in the next 30 days, so let's get the process started now. So that's where I'm at with that. And I did want to say, a couple of folks have emailed and said, they couldn't see everyone. So obviously they didn't have their speaker view on. I just know I personally, because I have some bandwidth issues, as soon as I turn off my camera, that helps. And so that's part of the reason I have to do it. So just wanted to get that in there too. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. Other comments? Susan?
Yeah, I'll also be supporting the motion. I would have preferred to be able to adopt it tonight, but I think the key thing is that it will go to the people as intended, and we'll hear from the people on this particular measure. So look forward to seeing the results of that.
Thank you, Susan. Any other final comments? We're ready for the vote on option 2 as read by Ross. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Gutowsky?
Yes.
Summers?
Yes.
Yes.
Gorgol? Pignataro?
Yes.
Cunniff?
Yes.
Troxell?
Yes. The motion passes, and with that,
Mayor, I think we need a motion to continue our business.
You are right. Thank you very much. And would you like to make that?
Yeah. So, Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules. I guess I'll propose that we complete our agenda and such other business that comes before council.
Thank you. Is there a second? Was there one?
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So a motion and a second, and debatable. Should we go for a comment on Carrie? Okay, so
I don't think that's necessary for this motion.
Okay, so we're just looking to extend the meeting. By our rules, 10:30. We need to affirm the continuation of the meeting. So with that, the motion has been made.